Everybody, we're live. My name's Skai, and joined today by my good friend and colleague Joe. Joe, how are you?
Pretty good. Feeling good. A lot of great
Yeah,
energy here. The winter season is coming closer. The tree's up. We got the ornaments out. December 1, we hit it. The kids are happy. Um,
got the kids out skiing yet?
we went out for some turns on Sunday. My daughter JJ, we had her on the leash. She's 3 years old and had a big smile, followed by a bunch of tears. And my son Louis, so he's 6. He's starting to motor along now, so it's pretty cool to see.
And a whole lot of hot chocolate in there.
tons of hot chocolate. Every 2 turns, there's a cookie or some sweet treat to keep the smiles on.
Nice. Well, we'd love to kind of hear where folks are calling in from. I'm here in North Vancouver. Joe's just a little bit further north of me, up towards kind of Whistler there. Yeah, so if you're in the chat there, you can just let us know. Here we go. Yeah, live stream chat. Indianapolis, welcome. Melina, Nikki, Seattle, Shona, Vancouver. All right, Eric, Indianapolis, Kyle, Toronto. Great. Dorothy, Austin. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Yeah, a couple housekeeping items kind of really quickly up front here as folks kind of get checked in. Mary from Calgary, Chelsea, Ottawa. Great. Thanks, everybody, for kind of taking some time to join us today. Yeah, there's a chat kind of built right in here. So if you do have questions kind of throughout today's presentation, by all means, kind of drop those in. We've got about, 50 somewhat slides. We try to, kind of pack as much value in there as possible in about 30 minutes or so. Marta actually went to school with Joe. No way. Okay, awesome. Joe, do you know Marta?
Great to see you. I can't see you, but great. Thank you for joining. Nice.
That's awesome. Cool. Great. Okay, well let's dive in. Joe, you've got kind of the slides here, so
yes.
you're going to take us away.
Well, again, thanks everyone for joining. Skai did some quick intros, but again, my name is Joe. That's Skai. We're the co-founders of Guusto, and we are super pumped to have you with us. I know you got a million places you could be, and you joined us, so thank you for that. And like Skai said, we're going to try and pack a lot into the next 30-ish minutes, but our goal here is to help you understand how to build recognition programs that deliver business results, whether that's in the head office or on the front line. Okay, and with that, we actually have a special year-end offer. Okay, so stick around until the end of the presentation. We're going to present the offer, and maybe you'll take advantage of the offer. So hang tight, and yeah, we'll see you at the end. But yeah, do post in the chat if you have questions along the way, and we have some folks monitoring that. So with that, most of you likely have a recognition program, or maybe you've worked somewhere with a recognition program. Maybe you've heard of someone receiving like a fancy pin after 15 years of service, or maybe you've been exposed to one of these catalog programs where you work for years, you save up a bunch of points, and then, hey, I got the crappy toaster that I never wanted. Or maybe your leader's bringing pizza into the office once a month, and expecting people to be super pumped, like this guy. Don't worry, we love pizza. We love pizza parties. However, the challenge here is that these are not tied to any specific behavior or team accomplishment. And really, they can be seen as a Band-Aid solution to a real problem. And so with that, the stats, they're pretty shocking. Okay, employee engagement is not where we need it to be these days. Less than 30% of workers are actually engaged. And if we're looking at frontline attrition, it's far worse. It's not a great picture, to be frank. 35 to 50% attrition in most frontline industries.
So these are big problems, kind of costing organizations tons of money in kind of lost productivity, in replacement costs, kind of bringing new people in. And the big kind of like hidden one is the opportunity cost, right? And when you've got kind of high turnover situations, maybe customers aren't receiving the service that they would from kind of an employee that knows what they're doing on the job. And so, those customers are going elsewhere. And if we look at, kind of what's causing this, it's actually kind of interesting. This is a study by kind of organization called Beekeeper. They do some frontline kind of HR tech. They asked kind of folks on the front line, like what workers were saying in terms of what was causing or limiting their productivity. And they asked kind of head office executives, and they got kind of some different results here. And so workers are saying things like unstaffed shifts, a lack of recognition, poor cross-team communication. And if you look at kind of the head office side of things, they're attributing kind of poor productivity or lost productivity to low morale and unclear team goals and a lack of recognition. And if management is kind of using these expectations to kind of shape their programs, it's likely that they're kind of falling flat or not connecting with kind of what workers actually need. And so go to the next slide here. Some other kind of interesting data just to paint the picture on kind of what's causing this. If you look at the working age population and, what's happening in terms of kind of growth as a percentage of kind of the overall population in both Canada and in the US, it's actually declining. And so this is making it, much more competitive and difficult to kind of recruit for frontline roles. Similarly, this is actually the first year where Gen Z is going to kind of pass baby boomers. And so now you've got kind of, millennials, the largest group in the workforce, and Gen Z kind of past baby boomers. And these folks, they're looking for careers and working opportunities that provide more than just a paycheck. They want to feel like they really kind of align with the company's kind of mission and values. They want to feel like they're connected and feel supported. They want to feel like they belong to kind of the organization that they're working at. And so, Lattice, I think, ran a study, and if folks don't feel like they belong to the organization, they're twice as likely to kind of leave. Now, lots of organizations still employ baby boomers and even kind of, some of the older generations. And so they might have kind of like 3 or even 4 generations in their workforce. So we see this, Joe, right? Like in healthcare, manufacturing. And so they're trying to kind of build programs that kind of span that entire kind of workforce and kind of connect with, people kind of all ages, right? And that can be difficult if you're kind of rolling out some really kind of fancy technology that, just doesn't work for the older folks. So it's an interesting time.
Indeed, my friend. And so before we dive into all the strategies and frameworks, and we are going to dive into those, I want to share a quick story about who we are and why we started a recognition company. And it really came out of a 1-star Glassdoor review. So this review that you're seeing right here is actually a review for Guusto. Okay. But before that, actually, let's rewind. Okay. So my good friend Skai and I, we actually grew up together. This is a photo of us as kids playing soccer. My dad was the coach. It was fun. After school, we actually started a dining tour company together in Whistler. So think high-end pub crawls. We bring groups to different restaurants. It was a pretty fun night. And through that experience, we got this idea like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if somebody could, send their client a bottle of wine or pick up the tab at lunch using a mobile app, and then the recipient of that gift could redeem with any restaurant that we worked with. And so we thought it was a pretty cool idea. We took it to Dragon's Den, which is Canada's version of Shark Tank. And you can actually still watch the episode online. Please don't. But at the time, we did not have a lot of traction. We didn't get a deal. And quite honestly, we were running out of cash. But shortly after that time, we noticed that there were, a group of people who really did love the app. And upon investigation, these were HR leaders who were looking for simple, thoughtful ways to recognize their people. And so we talked to them. We learned that it was frankly, really hard for companies to consistently recognize their people, especially if those people were across multiple locations or if they had frontline workers. Okay, so we had this realization. We're like, okay, we're off to the races. We got this. But things were continued to be slow going. And to be frank, we always seemed to be sort of like a step behind competitors. And it wasn't until Skai was Googling Guusto reviews to see what customers were saying about us. In came that one store Glassdoor review. We didn't even know what Glassdoor was at the time. And it was like, boom, up at the top. And this is how we felt, like truly, like it was a gut punch. Has anyone in the room here or the virtual room, has anyone ever had one of these, a 1-star review? Please put it in the chat if you had. This is a safe space. We can be open here. It hurts. It truly does, right? And so but for us, this was our aha moment where we truly felt the pain of poor employee engagement and ultimately the cost of turnover. Now, we're not bad guys, really. Ask around, we're not bad guys. We were just so focused on building a great product and selling a great product, we actually failed to make Guusto a great place to work. And so the irony here is that we were out in the world selling an employee recognition tool that we did not use internally. It's kind of mind-boggling. And so this is when we decided that if we were going to help other companies with their recognition programs and their culture, we actually had to do a damn good job internally. And so it's almost like we flipped a switch, we made the commitment, and as soon as we did this, everything started to change. The team really connected. They really engaged in their work, and we started to attract some amazingly talented people. And this is what happened to our revenue. Like it went bananas. And, since then, we've now worked with really thousands of HR leaders, and we've realized that our best customers have a certain way of working. And so we talk to them, we've taken their insights, and that is what we're going to share with you today.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's been quite a journey, not coming from HR backgrounds and really kind of feeling that pain that, the HR folks that were kind of early adopters of our product were telling us about, right? And we're like, oh, okay, now we get it. Like that hurt. Like that's something that's kind of worth solving. So if you're thinking about building a recognition program, the first place to start is kind of with goals, right? And getting really clear on kind of why are we building this recognition program? And so, these are some common things that we hear from clients, everything from kind of like an engagement survey, right? That comes back with kind of some really poor scores and we're looking to kind of improve that. Or, like Joe mentioned, being able to kind of attract great talent. And so having a strong kind of employer brand, being an employer of choice might be kind of something that you're looking to do, or reinforcing desired behaviors, right? So maybe you've kind of got some new core values that you're looking to kind of really kind of roll out. Now, if you boil these down, they really kind of fall into kind of like 3 buckets. So attracting talent, driving performance or kind of productivity, and retaining talent. And so really at the core of kind of all of these 3 is a culture that kind of provides a competitive advantage. And so culture is really the ultimate advantage, right? Because the speed at which information is kind of moving these days and with the advancements now in kind of AI, like it's so easy for competitors to copy your products, your marketing tactics, your sales strategies, your kind of finance strategies. So what they can't copy though is your culture, right? And that takes kind of years to build, and a great culture will impact like everything across your organization. How fast your team is kind of learning new things, how fast they're identifying issues, rallying around kind of solutions, recovering from mistakes. And so it's your culture that kind of really provides that strong kind of competitive advantage, and recognition goes way beyond just appreciating people. Like recognition shapes culture. And so we've got a bit of a framework here to kind of share with you, and hopefully this can help you kind of think about, how you're designing kind of your recognition programs, um, and how you might be kind of pitching, kind of a recognition program to your executives or to your colleagues. And so we call this the ACE Your Culture model. And so kind of, at the center, what we're really kind of trying to drive is, that culture that provides a competitive advantage, right? So that's the C in the middle there. And this is a workplace, again, that kind of attracts great talent, that gets people performing the best work of their life, that retains kind of, the best people, gets them kind of advocating for the company. So we'll put those kind of in the overlaps of the Venn diagram here. So if there we go, kind of attract, perform, retain. And then around the outside, to get those results, like to produce these outcomes, we need to kind of align our people, we need to kind of connect our people, and we need to engage our people. And so we call this kind of the ACE Your Culture model. Okay, so there's the ACE, align, connect, engage. Okay. And so, really quickly, maybe just before we kind of jump in, I'd love to know in the chat, I don't think we've got kind of like polling technology here in Riverside, but in the chat, like how much is your company using recognition to shape culture today? Is it something that like not at all, it's not happening at all? You've got maybe, some sort of program in place. So sometimes, frequently, is it, really embedded into your culture all the time? Feel free to kind of share that in the chat with us here, and we can kind of shape the discussion a bit around that. But let's kind of keep going here, Joe. We don't actually have polls in Riverside. Okay, great. Thanks, Caitlin. Occasionally. So aligning is really kind of all about getting everyone the information that they need to understand where the company is going and how they can kind of contribute to that, right? And so it's very much just about kind of communication, transparency, so we can kind of align everyone around the same way of working. And when there's no alignment, there's no trust. And it's Simon says it better than I can here. A team is not a group of people that work together. A team is a group of people that trust each other. And so, to align folks, if we want to kind of get them aligned and kind of working towards kind of shared goals there, we need to get really clear, with our thinking about kind of like how recognition can kind of impact this, on why we're kind of sending recognition, right? Or why we want our people kind of sending recognition. What sorts of behaviors do we want to reinforce? And so there's kind of three components here. We love to work in threes, if you hadn't noticed, but it's easy to kind of remember. Core values. So, are there core values that we want to kind of reinforce? Maybe you've recently lost some new ones. Maybe you've gone through a merger or something like that, right? And you're kind of bringing two companies together and, wanting to kind of get everybody at the new kind of company up to speed on what the behaviors are. So recognition programs are a great way to kind of reinforce core values there if we kind of surface those as kind of the key reason to be recognizing people. Next would be kind of milestones. Are there, some key milestones in the employee journey that we want to recognize, right? And we often kind of hear like the common ones, right? 5, 10, 15 years. But, are there some other critical milestones that we want to call out? And a lot of frontline organizations, right, have onboarding programs, training programs. And if we can get people past that first kind of 90 days, 120 days, that first 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months, let's celebrate that, because retention really kind of spikes up if we can get through kind of some of the onboarding kind of experience there. And the last one on the page here are key objectives, right? And so what are those objectives that we're driving towards? Can we get really kind of clear as an organization on what they are and how we might want our kind of managers recognizing people for driving towards those? So, maybe customer satisfaction, if I'm in a retail environment and we're making kind of a big push to improve our customer kind of satisfaction or our customer experience, can we set up a recognition program to reward or empower our managers to kind of reward people for driving towards kind of, that key objective? So again, what gets recognized gets reinforced. Okay, so the next one. So that was all about alignment. Now we're going to talk about connecting, right? And so connection is all about getting people to really kind of care personally about each other. And this is especially kind of important when employees are working remotely or out on the front line, kind of, in different areas of maybe the warehouse or manufacturing floor, retail floor, things like that. And when there's no kind of connection, there's no collaboration. And without kind of collaboration, it's really hard to get things done as a group of individuals. Another quote here for you, Michael Jordan, he says, talent wins games, but teamwork wins championships. And I think Michael was probably won the most kind of NBA championships. Joe, you're more of a basketball guy than I am.
One of the most.
And so, again, kind of three things to help you thinking about when you're building your recognition program. Okay, how do we connect people using this recognition program? And so the first one is around kind of like team building events. So you can provide rewards in these team building events, for participating, like here internally at Guusto, we occasionally have kind of like a health challenge, right? So for the month, how many steps can people take, or how many days can you kind of bike to work, things like that. And so you create a space for people to kind of create connections with their colleagues. And this will help to kind of foster trust, right? And so you can layer in some rewards for participating in those team building events. The next is kind of peer-to-peer. And this is, kind of where you give people kind of an easy way to kind of recognize their colleagues, right? And so this can be, as simple as, like a box in the middle of the office that folks can kind of put nominations in, and then at the end of the week or the end of the month, you're drawing a couple names out of it. We'll get a little bit more into kind of peer-to-peer programs towards the end when we've got kind of some specific recommendations for how to structure various programs. So maybe I'll leave kind of some of that for later on. But the last one is public. So how am I going to make my recognition program public, such that it's kind of visible across the organization? Maybe you've got different locations or departments and whatnot, and so you want to kind of surface some recognition kind of throughout the organization, so that kind of people can see the great work that their colleagues are doing kind of in other areas. And so if you're in the office environment, this can look like integrating recognition into some of your collaboration tools, so like MS Teams. Or maybe you've got kind of like an internal kind of company intranet system like SharePoint, something like that. If you've got frontline employees, think about kind of surfacing recognition on some TV displays, either kind of in the lunchroom or out in the warehouse, and just make that kind of visible throughout the organization. Now, a caveat, not everybody likes public recognition. And so really important to kind of ask your managers to, during their one-on-ones with their team members, ask them how they like to be recognized and whether public recognition makes them uncomfortable. If so, make a note of that and recognize those folks kind of privately. Now, the last one, engage. So this is the E from the ACE model. And so engagement is all about kind of motivating people to really care about the work that they're doing, right? And when there's no engagement, there's no innovation. And so it's critical to engage our people and empower them to try new things and to kind of make mistakes. And I love what Brene Brown says here. And we actually had the chance to kind of see Brene speak at a conference down in Vegas a few weeks ago. And she's just lights out, so fantastic. And but she says, there is no innovation and creativity without failure, period. And so, we've got to make that kind of space for people to kind of, try things and fail. And so with our recognition program, how do we actually kind of do that? How do we use our recognition program to kind of create a safe space? And so a few, again, kind of three things for you to kind of think about here. The first is around kind of learning and recognizing kind of learning. So maybe you've got some learning modules that you need kind of your frontline folks to kind of complete. And so maybe you tie in some rewards for completing each of those modules, right? Maybe, there's an award every month or kind of quarterly or annually for, somebody that kind of really went out and tried something kind of crazy and new, and maybe it didn't work out, right? But they were, implementing some new ideas, and you want to kind of really celebrate that. The next is around kind of manager budgets and kind of empowering your managers with a a way to be kind of consistent with their recognition, right? And so this is one of the biggest problems that we see with recognition programs is that, they're people are kind of participating in them in an ad hoc kind of way. And so, yeah, giving your manager kind of a weekly, monthly, or quarterly budget creates a bit of a kind of forcing function that, kind of keeps them kind of coming back to kind of recognize their folks. We want to surface maybe, we'll get into kind of some more, I've got some program kind of specific recommendations for manager programs. So maybe I'll leave some of those till the end as well. Feedback is the last one here. People need to know how they're doing with their recognition, right? And so, back to kind of manager budgets here. If we're giving our managers the ability to recognize folks, how do they know if they're, kind of doing a good job, relative to other people in the organization or the industry? Can we provide them some benchmarks? Like, what does great look like? So like, I recognize, my direct reports kind of once every month. Like, is that good? And so, are there kind of tools or ways that we can kind of show our folks here? And so this is actually a screenshot from our tool. So I can see, hey, when was the last time that I, recognized Julia, for example, either with like a gift, a reward, or even just with a shout out, right? And so that'll kind of, provide a bit of a reminder to me that it's important to kind of recognize my team members. Okay, so let's bring it kind of all home here with the ACE model. So again, at the center, how do we create a culture that provides a competitive advantage, right? Like when we're talking to our executive teams, they want to know, hey, like how is all of this investment in recognition or other HR programs driving business results? And so, we're going to help to kind of improve kind of attracting great talent. We're going to drive better performance. We're going to drive, better retention, get our people kind of advocating for the company. And so we do that by aligning, connecting, and engaging. And so again, around kind of the alignment circle there, we got to use our recognition program to drive home core values, objectives, maybe some key milestones. When we're connecting our folks with our recognition program, we do that by rewarding, some participating in team building events, using peer-to-peer recognition programs, making recognition public. And then finally, engaging our folks using recognition tools. We can reward learning, trying things, failing. We can provide our managers with budgets to reward their people. And we need to kind of provide insights and feedback to kind of our managers on, how are they doing with their recognition and how are their team members doing so that they can kind of, really build that culture of recognition. And so if we fail to align, again, at the bottom there's no trust. If we fail to kind of connect our people, there's no collaboration. And if we fail to kind of engage our team, there's no innovation. And so this is the ACER culture model. I encourage you to kind of take a screenshot of that, and hopefully that can kind of help you think about, building your recognition programs and how kind of all the pieces kind of fit together.
Great job, Skai.
Woo!
Cover.
I need a glass of water after that.
I was sipping as you were talking, just to keep myself hydrated. Okay, so let's take a closer look at how to actually build recognition programs. And with that, I think it's also important to start with what doesn't work. Okay, so the first thing that doesn't work is trying to go from no program at all to everything at once. Okay, doesn't really work. The other thing that doesn't work is building a program for the office and then just rolling it out to the front line and expecting the same results. It doesn't really work. And so with this graph, I think you've probably all seen this story before. So whether it's with recognition or it could be really any people program, the HR team gets together, they're spending a whole bunch of time, maybe a year planning the program. We're trying to do it all. We're going to do the milestones. We're doing spot bonuses. We're doing peer-to-peer. We're getting some referral initiatives. Like, let's do it all. There's a ton of communication and excitement out of the gate. We see this huge spike in engagement at the start, and then due to the complexity, or maybe there's a lack of feedback that went into building the program, participation just drops back down. And then 6 months later, the team makes a big push. We're get this back on track. Let's do this. We're going to relaunch the program. There's a bit of like we got another little spike here. And then the program sort of fizzles. And then it's just sort of like, hey, now we're just checking the box. We say that we do some recognition, but rather than really shaping culture and driving productivity and retention, again, we're just checking the box. And so let's contrast that with a client that actually starts small. So think, hey, maybe we're going to start with a simple milestone program. Okay. Then from there, we're going to pilot maybe some top-down programs. We're going to bring together a group of managers who are going to take part in this. We're going to figure out what works well, maybe some things that aren't working. We're going to build up some champions. We're going to get some success stories. And then we're actually going to scale the program by adding in peer-to-peer. Okay. And so here we actually see participation gradually growing. And then we're going to finish the year nice and strong. And the beauty of this here is that it puts us in a really great position to go to the senior leadership team and say, hey, this is working. We need to invest more. And then you're going to have a much easier time requesting and getting a bigger budget to invest in your programs. Now, we have seen a ton of success. Our clients have seen a ton of success with this crawl, walk, run approach. And we actually see a lot of vendors who are trying to recommend peer-to-peer programs right out of the gate. And now, don't get me wrong, peer-to-peer is fantastic and it can absolutely drive tremendous results, especially in office teams, but they do require a bigger upfront budget, okay? And there's a lot more change management, and there could be a struggle to get adoption with frontline workers, okay? And so let's remember, people ultimately leave their managers. And so I thought this was pretty funny, actually. I mean, well, not funny, it's a bit sad, but like you go into Google and type my manager, and here are the things that come up, right? It's mainly negative. It's people who are out in the world struggling with their situation, with their manager. And so it really is important to nail manager recognition before moving on to peer-to-peer. And if you're working with a smaller budget to start, it really is better to concentrate that budget with managers, get some results, and then roll out to a properly funded peer-to-peer program. Sometimes we see, organizations are really wanting to get to peer-to-peer, but that peer-to-peer program is so underfunded that it's really struggles to create impact. And so, even before this, a lot of clients are just looking to hey, how do we get something off the ground? How do we get some positive momentum going? And you could start with, again, like a simple milestone program that is modern and impactful. So let's start there.
Cool. Yeah. Why don't I jump in with some kind of specific kind of program tips here for you? So a few kind of critical things to consider for kind of each of your programs. So for your milestone program, like Joe mentioned kind of at the top of the presentation, people don't want plaques and pins for the most part, certificates. And so, let's give them something they actually want and value by providing kind of flexible kind of redemption options, right? And so that way they get to choose something that's meaningful to them, right? And so some folks might like that kind of fancy handbag, and other folks, might like an experience, and some people might just like to kind of get help with their groceries, right? But we're not giving everybody kind of a gift card to a steakhouse, and we've got a portion of the population that are vegetarians. Another really kind of important thing for milestone programs is to notify your managers, or even better, kind of route awards for milestones through the managers, so that the manager can kind of present it to their team member kind of personally, right? But at the very least, let's make sure to kind of give managers are really busy, right? And so they got a lot on their plate. They might be managing kind of a team of 5 people. It might be kind of a team of 25 people. It's difficult for them to keep track of all of the various kind of milestones on their team. So if you as an HR organization can provide a way to remind managers that, hey, Joe's kind of 3-year, 5-year kind of anniversary is coming up. you might want to kind of do something in addition to whatever the company has kind of like set up in terms of an automated award or whatnot. And then, next, I mentioned it earlier, but companies often kind of, start with a very simple milestone program that does kind of 5, 10, 15 years. But these do fairly little to kind of like really drive retention. And thinking about kind of a milestone program that includes onboarding rewards, again, if we can get people past that kind of like 30, 60, 90 to maybe kind of like 6-month mark, you work with your team to look at the data and, figure out like, hey, where are the critical points where kind of, retention really drives up, and how do we kind of use rewards to drive people kind of towards that period. And then lastly, with any milestone program or any recognition program, we'll see this kind of a consistent theme. How do we really kind of avoid fees? How do we avoid markups? A lot of these kind of traditional catalog programs that used to be kind of fairly kind of commonplace 10, 15 years ago. The same toaster that you didn't want was, $25 on the recognition catalog, and you could buy it at the store for kind of $15, right? So how do we kind of avoid all sorts of unnecessary markups, fees, so that the majority of our budget actually goes to the people that are kind of making an impact at the organization? Okay, so let's look at some top-down kind of programs, some top-down tips now. So these are kind of your manager budget programs. The first one is leadership by example. And so, I wouldn't say it's like often, but it is frequent enough to note that we'll see recognition programs kind of at organizations where the expectation is for managers to use them with their teams, but the leadership team is not using the same program. They're treating executives to, hey, use my kind of private shuttle service, or kind of I don't know, fancy other things that aren't what they're using kind of with their frontline employees. And so if you want your recognition program to be impactful, you need buy-in from your leadership team. You need to give them budgets to reward their team members. You need to allow them to recognize frontline employees, and you need to make that visible to the organization, because if they're doing it, the expectation is going to be kind of cascaded. And I think that this is true of recognition programs. It's likely true for most HR programs as well, right? So let's get our leadership team to buy in. One thing that we do here internally at Guusto that is fantastic, we actually start each of our leadership meetings with a recognition kind of call out section where each leader on the team highlights one person that they recognized that week. And so it kind of keeps us all accountable to be kind of, making recognition part of our regular practice. It also helps to kind of surface some of the great work that various team members are doing so that the leadership team is aware. So that's number one. Number two is kind of why, when, what, how. And so this is all about kind of, again, kind of communication, right? And so we need to communicate to our managers why they're recognizing people. And so, we saw some of that in the ACER culture model. Like, is it core values that we're trying to drive? Is it, maybe some key objectives that we're, trying to drive towards? But like, why do we want kind of the recognition to be kind of going out? The next piece is when. So, like I mentioned, kind of leadership meetings is a good one. One-on-ones, right? So building kind of if you've got templates for your one-on-ones for managers to use, put a question in there, who did you recognize this week? Are there some team huddles, things like that, that you can kind of build, shout outs or recognition directly into, so that it's part of the process of the business, right? And it's not, kind of up to each individual manager to just remember to be kind of doing this all the time. The what piece is kind of, making it, very clear kind of what to recognize. So again, kind of core values, great service, things like that. Oh, the why piece is more around kind of communicating the impact of recognition. So I got those two kind of mixed up, but like, showing managers kind of how, this other department, Joe mentioned kind of building some champions, show them the results that they got, right? Like, look at their kind of engagement scores drove way up with the recognition program, and look at what it did to kind of productivity, right? And so if we can kind of, really help managers understand the impact that their program is going to have. And then the last piece, kind of how. So, make it really easy. Is it, just writing on a piece of paper, putting it in kind of a Dropbox? Are there some kind of tools? Are there, mobile apps, things like that? Do we, prefer to kind of print things out and hand it to kind of our frontline folks? So getting specific on how you want your managers kind of presenting recognition. Last couple here. So the next one is all about kind of insights and benchmarks. And so, letting our managers know, and this is kind of, I shared a screenshot there of our product, but show managers, hey, it's been a minute since you last sent some recognition to these folks, right? And that'll kind of light a bit of a fire under them. And benchmarks, do something similar, right? So, at this organization, managers typically kind of send out on average kind of 15 kind of recognition notes kind of over the quarter or over the month or something like that, so that they know kind of, whether they're kind of above or below that kind of benchmark. And then the last one, again, how do we kind of avoid paying a bunch of fees for people that kind of participate in these recognition programs, but they're only participating as a recipient, right? And so if you've got kind of a workforce, let's think kind of like healthcare or retail, right? Where you might kind of have like a head office kind of operation, but then you've just got like 80% of the workforce out on the front lines, right? And with these top-down programs, it's just the managers that are actually kind of sending out some of the recognition and rewards. And so why pay fees for all of the recipients that are just receiving rewards, right? So how do we again kind of think about maximizing the budget that actually goes to our people, that goes to those frontline workers? Okay. Last one here. We're getting kind of close to the end. I feel like we're doing okay for time. Peer-to-peer tips. And so, with kind of formal peer-to-peer programs, Joe mentioned kind of this is a great place to get to. So if you can get a peer-to-peer program kind of really rocking and rolling, especially in those frontline kind of environments, you're off to the races. But the reality is it's really hard to kind of drive engagement out of the gate. And so kind of using that crawl, walk, run is going to give you so much more kind of success, exposing people to the recognition program through kind of some of those milestone and top-down kind of rewards before asking them to participate in a peer-to-peer way. I think the biggest thing is, if you have a small budget for your overall recognition program, it doesn't make sense to kind of take that budget and spread it thinly across everyone. So, we'll see this with points programs where, every employee gets kind of 180 points every month, but it translates to $1.80. And so I go to recognize a colleague and, thanks for going way above and beyond, covering my shift, here's 64 cents. It's almost kind of insulting. But the bigger thing is that it actually caps recognition. And so when you've got like a specific kind of amount of recognition to give out, I might get halfway through the month, maybe not even that far, and my budget is totally used up. And so I just kind of stop recognizing people. And so we really encourage organizations to build their peer-to-peer programs as complete non-monetary recognition programs, but then build kind of incentives around those programs, right? And so you can run weekly draws, or you can run, look at we do this internally every month. We'll look at kind of who's received the most recognition, but who has given the most recognition, right? So we want to encourage, folks to really participate in those programs. And doing things like this will really help to kind of surface a lot of the recognition and make it more of kind of visible, right? And so, really thinking about how do we kind of make the recognition program kind of visible across the organization? Can we integrate it with our communication tools? Can we put it into some mobile kind of social feeds? Are there bulletin boards around the office that we can kind of print things out and kind of put those up? Are there TV displays for frontline workers? So these are kind of the tips for your peer-to-peer program. Do you want me to summarize here, Joe, or do you want to kind of take this last slide? I feel like my voice is going.
Sure, I can jump in, Skag. Take a sip, man.
All
Okay,
right.
so When you're out in the market, you're looking for a provider. Keep these 3 pillars in mind. Okay. The first one, is it simple? Okay. How long is it going to take to launch? Are you going to need to train all of your employees? Hopefully not. And then is it scalable, right? Can you crawl? Can you walk? And then can you run? So that's the first pillar. The second one, is it flexible? Are you going to be able to reward people in ways that they actually value, right? Are there options for deskless workers to participate, like mobile? Are there offline printouts? So think like, hey, how are we actually surfacing and getting recognition to people who are on the front line and deskless? And then the third piece of flexibility is, is there visibility across the organization where people will see recognition? Okay. And then the last one, is it impactful? We're not doing this for nothing. We want to make sure that we're driving real business results. And so with that, is the maximum amount of your investment going to employees, right? So rather than setup costs, hidden markups, unclaimed rewards, or maybe even paying fees for people that just receive rewards, what percentage of that overall budget is making it to our people and driving impact? Okay. So those are sort of like 3 tips to keep in mind if you are thinking about, going to market and taking your recognition program to the next iteration. And so with that, pretty much it. Lots covered today, but with that, we do have an offer. I kind of mentioned it at the start. If maybe you need to send some recognition around the holidays, around year end. I know Thanksgiving just wrapped up in the US. We got lots of things to achieve as we approach the end of the year. If you're thinking about that, if you're thinking, hey, how do I drive engagement and retention in 2025? Maybe it's worth a conversation. And so with that, the offer will actually give you a single user account loaded up with $250. You can use that money to reward your people. And all you have to do to claim it is go to guusto.com/book-a-demo. So we'd love to chat with you if you have a need, and we'll get you set up. We just ask that you have at least 200 employees in North America, so Canada or the United States. Okay, and our team would love to chat, and hopefully we can help you overcome your challenges. And with that,
well, let's see. Let's open it up here and see if folks have any kind of questions. We've got kind of about 12 minutes till the top of the hour, but thank you, Tyler, for kind of dropping LinkedIn profiles there. If you want to connect with Joe or myself, we're active on LinkedIn. Would love to kind of connect with you all there. And if you've got kind of follow-up questions, by all means, kind of reach out directly. But if folks don't have any questions and enjoyed the webinar today, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. We really appreciate it. We like to say mucho gusto.
Thanks everyone. Skai, go take a nap, man. That you did a lot today. I was just an observer for the most part. So really appreciate everyone. Thanks y'all. Mucho gusto.
Thanks everybody. Thanks Marta. Thanks Melina. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.